What's going on, everybody? This is Living in Arizona Now, and today we're going to talk about the best states in the country. And the reason that I'm making this video is because I actually went around to many of the country or many of the states around the country. I have no idea what this white line is right across the middle here. Let me see if I can remove that. I have no idea what that is. Um, Either way, yeah, so we're going to make a video talking about this, and we're going to try and figure out what this white line is that seems to be on the screen. But I've got some good information for you because I just went around the country here recently. If you guys are out there and you guys can hear me loud and clear, please smash up the likes. But I just went around the East Coast. I did about a month going across the East Coast looking for the best places, of course. And I think I found some good information for you guys that's relevant to here in 2024, comparing Arizona to the rest of the country. Right now, there's a couple states that there's a couple lists that came out talking about the best states in the country, and Arizona actually ranked towards the lower half of that list. They ranked everything from economy to infrastructure, and we're going to talk about that. And I'm also going to give you my opinion. I've been to 43 of the 50 states here in the last 5 years. And like I said, recently I just went to the East Coast. Texas seems to rank really high on the list of most growth. Arizona used to rank really high up on the growth, but it's kind of slowed down. And yeah, so we're going to get into this. Let's see here. We've got News Now, California. What's going on? Yeah, I just recently went to California last year. I also went to Nevada. I'm currently in Asia now. So I'm thinking about making a video on Island Hopper TV talking about the best uh, countries, how USA compares to other countries. But let's go ahead and get into this list. So the fastest growing cities or states in the country, you have Texas. Texas is the fastest growing, followed by Idaho, North Carolina, Delaware, District of Columbia, Tennessee, Utah, and Georgia. Now on this list that just came out ranking the top states in the country, and this is basically uh, a list from US News, but it came out from a major study. Okay. So Utah, according to this data here, is the best state in the country right now, which is interesting because it's right below or it's right above Arizona. Arizona's right below Utah. I'm a little bit jet lagged in case you can't tell, being that it's 3:33 in the morning. I can't sleep. So I was like, hey, this is on my mind. Let's do it. But thanks to everyone who's smashing up the likes. But here's where it starts to get a little bit weird. Number two is New Hampshire. Now, I was just up in New England. It was cold, and I was in Boston, and I was thinking, like, yeah, it's cool and everything, but the weather is too cold for too long. I don't know why anyone would really want to put themselves through that. I get it. You know, it's a great economic area, and there's a lot of college institutions up there. But New England, I'm not a big fan of. Now, they did say New Hampshire. They didn't say Massachusetts, but still, Boston, New Hampshire, it's really close for those of you who've been there. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Nebraska. Nebraska is one of the few states I've never been to. Nebraska, South Dakota are two of the states I've never been to. I just recently went to West Virginia for the first time, so I added that one off the list, but I was surprised to see Nebraska on there. Most of the reason is because of fiscal stability. They say it's got great infrastructure. One state that kind of pops up on my radar when I think of Nebraska for this particular subject is Oklahoma. I recently went to Oklahoma a couple years ago. Oklahoma City, in particular, really stood out for their infrastructure, rolling green hills. Arizona, you know, I was just surprised it doesn't really make the list. Here's Minnesota at number four. Like, why would someone choose Minnesota over Arizona or Nebraska over Arizona? Well, that's where you have to look at what they're talking about. They're mostly talking about fiscal stability, infrastructure, and infrastructure. Natural environment, they say, is really good in Minnesota. But Minnesota, you're either going to get extremely hot, humid, and then extremely cold. Like you can't even go outside. So I don't know where they're coming up with this list, but that's why I'm making this videos, because we're getting all this mixed information from these sources that are saying that Nebraska, New Hampshire, Minnesota are above Arizona. And I'm kind of like, well, let me go around the country and see for myself and then report back to you guys. That's why you guys kind of subscribe to this channel to begin with, is because you guys know that I add perspective I'm not just someone who stays in Arizona the whole time, even though I am from Arizona and I live there and that's my primary residence. But I go around to other places, so that gives me a unique perspective that not everyone's able to get because they've got responsibilities that don't allow them to do that. Being that I work and travel, I'm able to do that. So I'll take advantage and share the information with you guys. Now, here's where it gets even crazier. They put Iowa over in the top 10. Okay. So they got Iowa, Vermont, Washington, Florida, and Massachusetts. So Massachusetts made the top 10. Florida is one that I could probably agree with. Now, they say Florida has the best economy and they say Florida has the best education. That caught me off guard. I was surprised to hear that Florida has the best education. The thing that I do like about Florida is its diversity in beaches and environment. It's really interesting. Not a lot of hills. I think the tallest mountain is in like Tallahassee. So that's interesting. Rod Williams says Utah sucks. Well, Utah is number one according to this list. Thank you everyone who's smashing up the likes, by the way. Darlene says, I'm in Nova Scotia looking to winter somewhere very warm and inexpensive. Any ideas? It depends on your budget, of course. You're saying inexpensive. Well, I don't really think you're going to get any better than, say, Arizona for meeting all that criteria. Arizona is pretty high up there. Florida has gotten quite expensive. I mean, I remember when Florida was almost cheaper than Arizona at times, and I was kind of like, "Wow, this is a pretty good place." I'm surprised it's so cheap. Those days are long gone. I mean, those days you could have found that in Florida in like 2014, even 2008. I remember being surprised at how affordable Florida was. It was almost kind of like it's just I was like, something's going to drive the price up. Well, sure enough, it happened. I mean, the demand just went through the roof for Florida. Now, has Texas is the fastest growing. I mean, if you look at the fastest growing cities in the country right now, I mean, you look at by by sheer volume, not just based on what do they call that? Per capita percentage. If you talk about population, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, those are all on the list. One place that I did go that is pretty nice that may be of interest to you guys, if you guys are looking for some really nice cities, uh, Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte, North Carolina is actually growing quite fast. It's booming. Charlotte, North Carolina is booming. The airport is horrible right now. Like for those of you who follow me on Island Hopper TV or VertCam, my airports travel guides where I go around to all the airports. Uh, Charlotte Airport drives me nuts, but it's mostly because it's under construction. So I can't really give Charlotte Airport a fair review until they're done with the construction. And I'd imagine once they're done with the construction, it's going to get better. For example, JFK Airport is atrocious. It's a horrible airport. It's one of the worst places you could do in and out air travel. I mean, and it's the gateway to America, but they're building a brand new world class state of the art terminal that's going to open in a year and a half. So what JFK is now, and in a year and a half, it's going to totally change. Now, if you were to compare Sky Harbor, Phoenix main airport, versus say Charlotte or Miami. Phoenix has, yes, it has crowds, but going through security, going through baggage check, very easy in Phoenix. Terminal 2, Terminal 3, uh, or Terminal 4, very smooth sailing in Sky Harbor. I would say, generally speaking, I don't really come across many hiccups, and I don't have many complaints about Sky Harbor Airport like I would have about, say, Atlanta. Atlanta is just a joke. I would avoid Atlanta Airport at all costs if I could, and that's not an airport that's getting any sort of renovations that I know of or rejuvenation. Charlotte is. Now, the reason Charlotte's so popular is because it's American Airlines' number 2 hub. So I think that's interesting for those of you who are looking for information to hear that Texas is where the highest amount of people are moving, mostly from California, to be honest with you. That's a lot of California people leaving. You think they're coming to Arizona, but they're going to Texas more than they are coming to Arizona. And one of the reasons that Californians go to Texas is because they don't have any state tax. Arizona has a state tax. So Arizona having a state tax isn't good for you at the end of the year necessarily, but it's good for you because it keeps Californians away, right? For those of you who have a problem with Californians. I mean, the way I look at it, the whole country's mixed and, we're all kind of coexisting together. So whether you come from New York or whatever, most people, they usually have a grievance because of the way that they try to change things, and it takes away the culture and the soul of the community. So that's why people typically have a grievance with people from out of state, California in particular, when that's where the highest volume of people is coming from. But Dallas Fort Worth had the highest numeric increase in population from 2021 to 2022 of any U.S. metro area, with an annual jump of 170,000 people, followed by Houston, the Woodlands, Sugarland, Texas metro area, 124,000. So Dallas is long shot ahead. Now, I did recently go to Dallas. I could not live in Dallas. I wouldn't want to live in Dallas. If I had to choose between Dallas and Houston, I would take Houston. Now, in Texas, my favorite place that I've been to was probably San Antonio for travel. But if I wanted to actually live someplace, it would still remain Houston. I would say Houston's a nice place to live. The thing I don't like about Houston is it's got like 6 lanes of freeway, and those 6 lanes of freeway still get world-class traffic jams like you wouldn't believe. So I'm just like, all right. Well, so I did also recently go to Atlanta. By the way, you guys can come over to Island Hopper TV and see all the travel guides that I've made for all those cities. I even went to Pittsburgh for my first time. So that was interesting. I went to West Virginia, like I said, but I did the route that goes basically Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Washington, D.C. I went to Washington, D.C. I went to Baltimore. By the way, I think Baltimore is actually a pretty nice city. I know a lot of people don't like Baltimore, but I actually found Baltimore to be pretty good. Uh, so you have Washington, D.C., Baltimore. Then I went to Philly. Then I went to New York. Then I went to Boston. I went to Pennsylvania, back again, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, back down to North Carolina. And now I'm back over in Asia. But that was just my most recent month. So of all those places that I went, the one that seems to be kind of up and coming, or the ones that seem to be up and coming, Charlotte, Atlanta. Uh, Atlanta gets a big flack. You know, a lot of people don't like Atlanta, but you have to kind of go through Atlanta, go into Buckhead. You have to go into Midtown and get out of downtown. If you just go to downtown Atlanta, you're not going to like Atlanta. But if you go up to Buckhead, which is like the Scottsdale of Atlanta, it's a pretty nice area. It's safe, it's clean, and people like Buckhead. They also like Midtown. So that whole area is pretty good. And I would say everything about Atlanta is nice except for that airport. It's just chaos. It's chaos. It's the most used airport. They get the highest volume of passengers in the United States. So you can only imagine how chaotic it gets, and that's mostly because of Delta. But either way, if we could make a whole list about the best airports in the country based on my opinion, I would say Sky Harbor is definitely up there, and that's not just me being biased. Sky Harbor is a pretty good airport, and it just keeps getting better. So good job to Sky Harbor. Another thing that I would say Arizona or Phoenix does really good is the freeways. I would say our freeways, considering how big the city is, we're one of the top 10 metro areas in the country. We're the number 6. Phoenix is number 5 or 6 largest city in the country in terms of population. But we just keep moving up the list too, although we're not growing as fast as we were in previous years. I don't know exactly why that is. Well, mostly I would say because Californians are leaving to Texas more than they are Arizona, and that's growing. And Houston, Florida's gotten a lot of that population also. But Arizona's definitely, growing. We just cracked the 5 billion people mark. I mean, there was a time where thinking of 5 million people living in Arizona was a big stretch, but it's definitely growing. Thank you to 35 people who crushed up the likes. Thank you to everyone who's doing that for us, helping to get this video out there as we continue to talk about this. So now here's the areas, the regions that are getting the most growth. So it seems like the South, the U.S. South and the West of the United States are getting the most growth. Now, if you talk about the largest cities in the country right now, you have New York's number 1, Los Angeles is number 2, Chicago number 3, Houston number 4, Phoenix number 5. We just mentioned that. Philadelphia number 6, San Antonio 7, San Diego, Dallas, Austin, Jacksonville. Jacksonville is also the largest in area. It seemed like Jacksonville is the largest city, but that's not the largest metro area in Florida because there is a difference. City being just the city municipality, but if you can include the metro areas, cities around there, it's Miami. So I would say the metro population is probably where we really need to be dialing that in. So now the list changes. It goes New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas. Number four is Dallas. 8 million people in Dallas. Dallas is really booming. Houston, number five. Atlanta, number six. So Atlanta is ahead of Phoenix now. Washington, D.C. at number seven. Philadelphia, although Philadelphia, New York, and Los Angeles, Chicago are cities that are kind of almost losing population at this point. But they're including Philadelphia, Camden, and Wilmington. Miami, Fort Lauderdale is one spot above Phoenix. Now, the big difference is Miami, 6.1 million. Phoenix coming in at number 10, just over 5 million. So Miami and these other cities are significantly far ahead of Phoenix. Phoenix did just pass up Boston, which is losing population. They're kind of scrambling over there. So we did just pass up San Francisco a while ago. San Francisco the Bay Area, that's San Jose, San Francisco, Oakland, used to be one of the biggest metro areas in the country called the Bay Area. It's actually losing the most population. Los Angeles and San Francisco are losing the most population in the country right now. So that tells you something about, is California that good? Is Arizona that good? Is Texas that good? So, I mean, if we're just going based off of where the people are moving based on what the migration is telling us, let the migration be the metrics. I would say that Texas seems to be the number one. And a lot of it is climate. A lot of it is the greenery, the natural environment, the economy. Houston being a major economic hub for oil. Dallas also having a lot of economics opportunities there, good for working, but also their tax, the way they do taxes. Florida is also one of those states. So Florida and Texas, the way they do taxes with that no state tax and the way that they kind of make it up on the back end in other areas has really set those guys apart in terms of growth. And, where there's growth, there's going to be economic opportunities. So California, an Edenic place. This is a place that used to be one of the most beautiful paradises on earth. I mean, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, anyone who go to California, they would say this place is just amazing. Los Angeles, San Diego 20 years ago, 30 years ago, just a beautiful place. The way those harbors are set up. San Francisco, the same thing. But it's chasing people away. It could be on purpose, right? It could be by design. They could be saying like, hey, we got too many people here. We need to kick some people out or chase them off. So they make it difficult to enjoy themselves. So they want to leave. And that kind of creates a migration to other places. But California is not it. It's not it. I would say most of it is related to crime, homelessness, and economic opportunities seem, what you make versus what you spend. It doesn't seem to be a very valuable situation. So you're going to find those valuable situations in places like Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Utah. Utah obviously being very high on that list. If we talk about the best economies in the country, that's Florida. They say for the average person. We're not saying the highest GDP because we all know that's California and Texas, but they're saying for the average person. Another place where you're going to find good economic opportunities is Idaho. Idaho is one of those places. If you don't mind the cold, and it doesn't get brutally cold there, it's just a place where you're going to find uh, chillier weather. Same with Utah. Obviously the Coyotes left for Utah. Maybe Utah is going to be the next big opportunity coming up. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't get the growth that Texas gets. And I mean, maybe these lists kind of sway people depending on what they've seen. But yeah, overall, I would have to say, being that Arizona comes in number 32 on this list, I would say it's a lot higher than that in terms of my personal preference. The reason I would put Arizona possibly in the top 15, I don't know if it's necessarily in. I would say for me, it's still my home and I would stay there. I haven't seen anything that made me want to leave. Like, Houston, like I said, Houston and Charlotte really caught my attention here recently. Washington, D.C. is a lot better than people think. Every time I told people I was going to Washington, D.C., they would say, oh, you're going to Washington, D.C., be careful. Well, yeah, they've got a little bit of crime, but so does Phoenix, so does Los Angeles, so does every place. Houston has it. Dallas has it. Washington, D.C. has received over the last 15 years a major facelift. I don't know when the last time you guys went to DC, but it's a lot more than the National Mall in the capital. It's actually a very modern and new city. And I'm here to tell the people, go to Washington, D.C. if you haven't gone. It's actually a pretty nice place. It might not be for everybody, but I thought it was good. Baltimore, the same thing. Like you can actually live a really good life in Baltimore. Um, yeah, they come up on the list for being dangerous, but of course they have safe areas. I mean, Maryland in itself is where a lot of really wealthy people. So that tells you that it's not just a horrible place to be. It's not like Mississippi or Alabama. So uh, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, pretty nice places. What I really liked about Baltimore was the fact that you can live in a condo or an apartment and then just go walk out onto the street and you'll find pubs and nice restaurants, good food, and a pretty nice weather. I mean, it doesn't get too cold. I don't know if you guys know this, but it didn't snow in New York or Washington, D.C. the last 2 years. So New York City didn't get any snow and DC didn't get any snow this last winter. You guys are gonna. When I heard that, I was like, New York City didn't get any snow. I was like, I'm, you watch any Christmas Carol or any Christmas movie, DC and in particular New York always has snow. So when I heard the last 2 years they haven't gotten snow, I was surprised. That doesn't mean it hasn't gotten cold because it's gotten cold there. Like I was just there in JFK about 3 days ago, and it was cold here in May, like cold, like below 50, 60 degrees. But they didn't get any snow, so it is what it is. Um, Now I'm going to read some comments here. We got Dane says Utah is a great state. Utah is a great state. It's got a lot of beautiful places. I mean, Zion National Park, Arches National Park, uh, St. George, Utah in the south. They got Provo, although Provo ranks as one of the worst airports. Salt Lake City Airport is just too spread out. I mean, the way they build these airports, I'm wondering who's building them because you got to really love walking. And I'm thinking, like, what happened to all these people that are in wheelchairs and stuff? How are they going to get around these big airports that are so spread out? But I guess they hire people to push them around, or airport staff does it. So maybe that's why. Either way, it's still huge airports. Salt Lake City's so spread out. It's ridiculous. Like you got to go under the airport runway. Um, Arizona's a lot more convenient, I would say. But DC, I would say consider DC, consider Charlotte, consider Atlanta, Tampa. I like Tampa. I like Orlando. A lot of people don't like Orlando, but of all the other places that I would consider living, Orlando might be up there. Like I actually thought about moving to Orlando here recently, just because Florida's a state without sales tax. Orlando's really nice. I mean, it's not next to the ocean or anything, but I couldn't really find a reason not to move to Orlando. I it seems like, I like the fact they built a high-speed rail between Miami and Orlando. Uh, Tampa's close by, Cape Canaveral on the other side. So you got Gulf Coast and then you got Atlantic Coast on the other side. Um, but again, going back to Arizona just having over 300 days of sunshine. I mean, you're not going to get that kind of sunshine in Charlotte. Even Atlanta was cold in May. Charlotte had some cold weather when I was there. It gets muggy also. So, you got to take into consideration, like, do you want sunshine or not? If you're one of those types of people who doesn't need that UV sunshine like I do, then you could probably do better in a place like Washington D.C. or Charlotte, or maybe even Atlanta or Philly. Philly's a pretty nice place. I mean, Philly and Spring's pretty good. Skip New York. New York is a total zoo. I mean, it's a concrete safari, is what I'd call it. I mean, it's like you're in a safari bus driving around on one of those hop off buses, hop on, hop off. And it's like you're on a safari going through this big, giant, crazy city. It's really cool to visit, but to live there, you have to really have a high stress tolerance. I could see why there's road rage out the wazoo over there. But yeah, I mean, I've unloaded a lot of information here in this chat about my impressions about the country, and Arizona still seems to be pretty good, up pretty high up there, just because of the sunshine. Obviously, we get brutal summers, but I mean, you're going to trade a brutal summer for a brutal winter in Boston or New York or some of these other places. But the gray skies really put me down when I was on the East Coast in May. Like I was like, man, it's May. Come on, warm up. I arrived from the Caribbean. I went through the Caribbean for 4 months, going to so many different islands, right? This Caribbean and Central America. I went to probably like, I don't know how many islands, right? But there was so much sunshine down there. And then I come up north in April thinking it's warming up, and I was in Florida. I was giving it time to warm up north. And then I started going to Atlanta, rain and cold. Charlotte, rain and cold. Washington, D.C., rain and cold. Philly, same. New York City, same. Boston, ooh, Boston was freezing in May, man. Freezing up there in Boston. I don't know. It just depends what you want. 50-watt nomad travel nurse says, if you don't want sunshine, move to Western Washington. Okay. um, Darlene says, we aren't looking to buy. I mean, you guys tell me what's your favorite states. I mean, you've heard from me. I mean, let's see what the consensus is. But again, North Carolina, definitely a place that seems to be high up on people's list. North Carolina, man, it is pretty good. They've got a lot of places. Raleigh, they've got Asheville, they've got Wilmington, Raleigh, Durham. I just mentioned that, and then lots of places out there in North Carolina. South Carolina doesn't really come up on the list, although people do like Charleston. I'm not a big fan of Charleston. I'm not a big fan of Savannah, but people like it. You can get snow in Pine Top and Prescott like 90 miles away. Bill Pike says, I want Maine in the summer and Arizona in the winter. Yeah, but Maine's summers are so short. We're just talking about like 3 months, because in May in Maine right now, it's freezing. Just let's see what the weather is in Maine right now. Portland, Maine. Let me just pull it up. I know when I was just there a week ago, I was like, nope, not going up to Maine. Looks a little bit too cold. Let's see Portland. It seemed like the 7-day was really cold also. 56 degrees right now. All week it's in the 60s. With rain, temperatures in the 40s here in May. I don't know if that's going to do it for me. So take May off the list. That gives you what, June, July, and August, and I think it starts to get cold in August. So you're looking at 2.5 days of Maine in the summer. I don't think that's enough sunshine for me. So I would say give me northern Arizona in the winter or in the summer, and then Phoenix in the winter. So northern Arizona in the summer months, Phoenix in the winter. Seems to work pretty good because I don't have to go very far. I can drive. But if I was to really have it, to where distance didn't matter, where would I go to be a snowbird in summertime? Ooh, because some of these places get real humid. Again, northern Arizona, because there's no humidity up there. So you have to take those things into consideration. How much humidity can you stand? Like, you don't want to be in Philadelphia in the humid. You don't want to be in Chicago when it's humid. I mean, you don't want to be in Chicago when it's cold. I mean, I could see why Chicago's losing population. Like, yeah, they got some good culture. They got some good food. I mean, one thing I would say about the East Coast that stood out, the food quality on the East Coast is way better than Arizona. That's for sure. Like you can actually get some really decent quality food in Boston, Washington, D.C., Philly, like good quality food. You're not going to find good quality food in Phoenix. Quality food in Phoenix is, ugh. I'm talking generally speaking, it just seems like the food quality down in Phoenix. I mean, maybe because we're so far away from the bread baskets of the country, they have to ship everything in, so it's just not fresh. Whereas maybe on the East Coast, they just get fresh stuff from, Pennsylvania farmers, the Amish. Maybe that's why they get more fresh food over there. But if food's a big part of your life, which it is for me, I would say, East Coast has better food. Yeah. I mean, West Coast has all right food, but it's just got to be better. It's so much greener on the East Coast. I mean, you go around West Virginia, Pennsylvania, just all of that. It's just green, green, green. The whole area. Virginia is very green. North Carolina is very green. 50-watt says Prescott great, just expensive for housing. Yeah, Prescott has gotten really expensive. That's the thing. Affordability. I mean, there's not very many affordable places. I guess that's where Nebraska would be pretty good, right? But if you have an air conditioner, that makes it so much better, right? Did any of you guys see the Northern Lights and take some pictures? I'd be interested to hear if you guys had a good experience. I missed it. I was actually flying from JFK to Kuwait. I went to Kuwait, uh, which is my first time in Kuwait. Um, yeah, Kuwait it is what it is. It's just I mean it's like I guess it's like a desert like you would see in Arizona. Um, they have a lot of skyscrapers and oil money, that's for sure. But Kuwait's cool. They got good food over there. I like rice lamb biryani, and then I was in flying to Asia. You guys can see all that on Island Hopper TV, by the way. I'm going to finish posting all of the travel guides from the East Coast. I've already done Philly, I've done Tampa Bay, I've done Atlanta, I've done Orlando, I've got New York coming, I got Boston coming. I did Pittsburgh on the Island Hopper TV travel highlights, and I did West Virginia on travel highlights. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me on this one. Nova Scotia is beautiful. Yeah, we flew over Nova Scotia going to Kuwait because you have to go up and over. So, thanks to everyone who crushed up the likes. We have 58 people who liked it. Um, who's Dane? My name is not Dane. David. I don't know who David's talking. Who's Dane? Oh, Dane. David. Surprise. Newer city, still growing. Nice homes. David says he loves Dane. You're a great guy, Dane. Just seeing what Big Boss has to say. Your input means a lot to me because I'm moving from Huntington Beach, California. What did Dane say that's so profound? Dane, you're a great guy, man. New York, a no. He says New York and Boston, a no. Steve says, what about Verrado outside of Phoenix? Verrado's nice. It's nice. I mean, it's hot in the summertime, but in the winter and the spring, it's very nice. In the fall, also. Verrado is nice. But it's the west side of Phoenix. It's got a long ways to go to catch up to the east side of southeast Phoenix. I would say. I mean, if I was to move to anywhere, if I was to say move to anywhere in Phoenix right now, I would say look at Ahwatukee. I've always said Ahwatukee is like the hidden gem of Phoenix, and the reason I really like Ahwatukee is because it's right there next to Tempe. It's tucked away next to the South Mountains. It's not crazy. It's not chaos. You're not going to find crime there, and it's right next to the I-10 freeway. You can easily get to downtown Phoenix. You can easily get to Chandler, Tempe. So Ahwatukee, I mean, it seems to be a pretty good place. I mean, it's like a poor man's Scottsdale. Outside of that, where else are you going to get good value like Ahwatukee? Mm, with location, if location counts, Ahwatukee is pretty much it. I don't know if you guys know about Ahwatukee or not, but you guys are over here talking about Verrado, but Verrado is so far out there. I mean, you have to go a long ways down that I-10 to get to Verrado, and it's right next to the white tanks. But either way, hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Hope to see you guys over on Island Hopper TV as I finish up those US travel guides, and then I start showing you guys around the rest of the world out here in Asia. So we'll see you guys. And if you guys want to see a video about how USA stacks up against the other countries, that'll be interesting to hear my opinion on that, because I didn't even touch on that in this one. But as you can see, I spend a lot of time outside of the United States, and that's no coincidence. So if you guys want to learn about that, I'll be hopefully talking about that tomorrow over on Island Hopper TV at some point. See you guys.